think we might start. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're really excited that you made the time to come and have a look at what we're really excited to show you. As we mentioned in our invitation, look, we've got a couple of really cool features that we're hoping will save you time in your day-to-day processes. We fully recognise that a system is only as good as the features that you use and the things that are making a difference. So look, without dragging things out, I'm going to pass over to Jason and he's going to talk you through what these are.
Thanks, Alison. And as you said, thrilled to have you guys online with us and looking forward to running through a couple of features today that we think are really genuine time savers for you. Those that know me well know that I love to talk too much. I love to talk too quickly, and I'm going to do my best to slow it down a little bit today. Probably more chance of my beloved Kangaroos making the top 4 next season. Go Clarko. But look, we'll give it a go. Let me share my screen and hide my magnificent looking self, good looking rooster that I am. And hopefully you guys can all see my shared screen. So what we're going to do today is look at a couple of features in Accrivia that these have been around for a couple of years, but some recent enhancements in one of them, and probably just a lack of us promoting the other one has arrived at the conclusion we really should promote these to you, highlight them to you, because there's some real benefit to you guys in having these online. The first one that we're going to look at is the Creditor PDF Invoice Load, and this is our main dashboard for bringing in all your supplier invoices and essentially posting them automatically and putting them straight through without any manual involvement, as long as everything's in order. Where things are not in order, of course, we need to check it and have a bit of a look. And then the second part of the presentation today, we're going to look at the cash book presentation or bank reconciliation process, but we're going to really draw out the fact that the system can do the debtor receipting for you from the information that we're getting from the bank file. And those that have taken this one up and are already online with it have given us time reflections back of multiple hours per week being saved already for sites that are a little bit bigger and got a bit of volume of transactions coming through. So we reckon that one you're going to like as well. And then time permitting, because I love to talk, as we've already said, we're going to look at a couple of other things that we've got in Accrivia that may or may not you may be aware of, and just highlight again the benefits and the time saving aspect to you guys, automated reporting and a couple of things along those lines. So let's jump into it. Creditor PDF Invoice Load. This dashboard is actually going to be more, it already is more than just a PDF processing screen. We already support Excel and other file formats types in this screen, but it's the main hub, a dashboard that allows you to then drive the entry of your creditor invoices in a highly automated sense. Typically in any given audience, there's going to be people that are high attention to detail and love the levers, love all the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty stuff. I'm a bit wide that way, I'll be honest. I'm going to not go into that amount of detail today in this screen. There is another video on our YouTube channel that covers all of that in that much detail. And the same goes for the second part of our presentation. But I am going to draw in enough to let you guys see how it hangs together and the functionality of how it works. So once we've opened the screen, the 3 or 4 step process, if you like, is to import the PDF files, to look at the data that's on the screen. We're going to do all of this right now. Post the ones that are straight right, ready to go. The big green ticks, highways all the way, and sort out the ones that are flagged in orange or red that we've got issues. And then, as I say, post them through. So very clean 1, 2, 3 sort of step process. The data that we're going to bring in resides in a given folder in your Accrivia filing system. So this is part of the filing system that we manage in terms of PDF documents and other things. And these PDF documents and other files need to end up in this folder. We can scan your email where you currently receive your invoices to, And we can set up business rules. So if we're scanning, admin at or accounts at, we can look for emails that have come from your known suppliers. We've got the email address that we're receiving it from. We can look for certain business rules around the naming convention. So we won't grab down promotional material for argument's sake, but we will grab down the invoices because obviously that's important. We don't want to pick up things that we don't need to process. We can then put them in this folder, and that allows you to come in and just literally sweep them in. So that's just a bit of a side note, but this is where they need to be for us to then pick them up. So the first thing we would do is press the Import PDF Files button. And as you can see, the system's swept all the information from that folder in. If we went and had a look now, they've all disappeared from there and they've gone into the loaded folder. I've deliberately set our data today to have some deliberate problems, if you like, that we're going to need to bump into, because I want to draw out some of the functionality and how this dashboard sort of hangs together. What you would typically expect to see is lots of greens in this leftmost column. Green is good, traffic light system straight up. Green is good, right to go. The orange colour represents where we've got something that isn't 100% correct and we want to draw your attention to it. It might well be fine to proceed, but as orange would suggest, look, the programmers around this joint, they are inclined to see an orange light because they're all younger than me and they'll go fast, trying to beat the red light camera, but not so fast that they get picked up by the speed camera. Probably not, bad example. The red ones, absolutely, we're going to stop you. We've got some problems there that we want you to overcome and address before we're going to allow you to proceed. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a couple of examples of the orange and the red and just talk through what the system's doing and again, how the benefits of this to you, this works in your case to save you the time of manually entering. Because if we've got the data and we know the data is 100% correct, we can just basically push those things through. So looking at the screen, you can see here, this is a good example of something that's all in order. The purchase order price there is exactly the same as the invoice amount. So not even a cent difference. So we've shown up in a black font here. These red ones, slightly different. It could be that the delivery charge has come through and that wasn't on our purchase order. So we might have $104.50 for argument's sake as the difference. Or it could be a small amount of rounding where the actual price of the stock we've set up in our agreed pricing is just different by a few decimal places at the end of that. And we're going to come to those details in just a sec as we work through the data you're seeing on the screen. So as I said, green is good. If we have a look, what we'll find with this one is that the agreed trading rates I've got in place are exactly the same as the invoice rate. It also checks that the standard cost that I've got set up, which is where we determine your margin and your markup to come up with your cell structure, is also in order with what we're picking up here on the invoice rates. So there's no bold, there's no colouring going on. We've got a perfect match. And you can see up the top here, that colour is green. This James Hardy invoice would be right to go through without any more considerations on your part in terms of checking things. Just as a couple of side points, we can pop the PDF out at any point in time and have a look at it, scroll it round. You can put this on your second screen if you're wanting to compare what's on the document to what's in the actual system. You can also scroll around within the viewing pane over here if you want to, zoom in, zoom out. This Rondo one is also an example where everything is in order, no colours, etc. going on there. And this screen is not just about stock for the warehouse, it's also able to pick up any invoice from any supplier. So I've just used a Telstra, a service provider, as an example here today. And you can see down the bottom of the screen, we have no stock details. There's nothing going to our warehouse to sit on the shelf to resell. It's just an expense allocation. We've got the branch involved if applicable. I could split that over multiple branches. It might have been a bill from your legal guys or your accountant, and you're wanting to put the costs across different departments, different branches, all that sort of thing. Off to the right here, there's a bunch of other fields going on. Again, I'm not going to draw in an enormous amount of detail on everything on the screen. Most welcome to have a look, as I said, on our YouTube channel at the detailed video that really does drill down every element of this. But you can see there's a tick that says there are no stock details for this invoice. And we know, therefore, to essentially turn off the checks and balances around things that would prevent you posting it because things are not in order. Just while I'm up on this top grid, mentioning a couple of other things, if the purchase order and then the invoice related to a debtor's order in your system, we will show you the debtor, the order reference, all the information that's going with that, and you can actually check on that. You've got the ability with a right-click action up here to jump in and edit that order. We're going to come back to this menu in just a second as we do various things together. And then the last one I want to mention, it's a new feature in the system or more recently released, is we've now got the ability when we set up a supplier or a creditor to put a tick in place and the default payment type. So if you had a situation where, for example, picking on my Telstra one down here for a sec, I had a trading arrangement with these guys that they automatically paid that invoice using my company credit card. I can actually set that up on the actual creditor to know that the Visa or whatever it might be is automatically paid. It's 14 days after the invoice date. And then once this invoice is swept in, you won't even have to revisit that in terms of the payment process. In that situation, the system will have done the whole entry and the payment in one suite of the electronic data. So there is some real time savings there in terms of not needing to follow that up further and handle the payment side where you've got trading a relationship that they take the money out of a direct debit or they take it straight from your credit card. All right, let's get into a little bit of nitty details. So for the big picture people out there, the process is you load the information in on the screen. You would typically press the select valid lines for post. We'll tick all the greens. We also tick the orange ones at the moment. A couple of clients that I've set up with this feature, with this functionality recently, have said that they'd rather perhaps see the orange ones not auto ticked. And I've got to say, I'm leaning towards that. My joke about seeing an orange light and accelerating aside, I think to not automatically post those ones using that automation of the ticking there is probably a very good idea. And that way we've got to check those through and have a look what's going on. And of course, red, you cannot tick these ones to actually post them at all. You will get an error and be told the reason that you can't proceed. So that is simply not going to be possible until we sort out the data. So again, big picture, press the select, we then press the post, invoices are done. I'm going to do that at the end of this run through, at this part of the segment, because I want the data on the screen to talk about it with you guys a bit further. That would be the processing though. In a very quick and easy way, we load them in, post the ones that are green and valid, come back through, sort out the ones that are orange and red, get our issues sorted, and then post those as well. And if I wasn't drawing this out for all it's worth, you can actually see me post, 40 invoices literally in about 15 seconds and then sort out, as I say, the orange ones. So getting a little bit nitty and gritty for those that love the detail and looking at the bottom part of the screen and talking about some of the information that these systems telling us at the top, this is an example of something that's in perfect order. The pricing is all as I expect it to be. There's no variation between the invoice rates that I've been charged and what I expect the price to be down the bottom. The details up here are also reflecting things are all in good order. Basically nothing to see here, we're right to go. And I guess it's worth mentioning, the premise of the logic that we're running with here is if you've got agreed trading rates with your suppliers and you've raised the purchase order at those rates and they've sent you an invoice for those items and the warehouse guys have received that stock in, there is not a lot of extra checks and balances that we need to do at invoice stage. Why? Because everything that we've pre-set up and all the data that's in the system that allows us to arrive at a quality outcome has already been done by you. You've already established the right business rules. And at the last step, the invoice being entered into the system, all things are in order. There's no need to check it through. So that's where the time and the speed, efficiency, the gains are coming from. If I jump to this one, let's start talking about some of the orange entries here, the ones where we're not quite happy. It's not a red traffic light, if you will, but it's not also 100% right to go. If we look at this one here, what we can see is that the Invoice rate is $46.02. My agreed trading rates, as set up on the stock line, are also at $46.02. Everything's in order there. On this second line, $26.43 is my agreed trading rates. $26.43 is the invoice rate. So at a first level check, things are actually in order there. There's no problems whatsoever that the price I'm paying is the price I'm expecting to pay. However, my standard cost for that first item is $48.33. That's greater than what I'm being charged, meaning I'm going to make more margin when I sell those items, assuming this is a trend that's going forwards, than what the system suggests. That's not a great concern to us in terms of helping you guys have appropriate business rules in place, but we've set it in bold to represent, as you can see with the legend here, that the price is within 2%. This one's over, so it's not a concern. However, again, and the data here's been set for the purpose of talking about it today with you, this one is in orange, and it says it's within 2 to 10% variation. And you can see there our standard cost at $25.04 is below the invoice rate. So when I sell that item, I'm going to be making less margin than I think I am making with the setup. That'll reflect on my profit reports, my margin reports as I go, and I will see that, oh, hold on a sec, we expected to make 18% or 25%, whatever the number, we're actually going to be coming under that because the average cost is what we're actually purchasing the item. So we really want to draw your attention to that. And we will allow you to proceed because it's a warning. It's not a hard block. We're not outside our trading terms. The pricing status column up the top of the screen reflects that same information. So you can see there our invoice rates all in order. Our standard cost is below by 5%. That's not a problem. You're making more margin. However, this second line is a big concern. If our invoice rates are at $46.02 and our standard cost is at $48, I've said that backwards, haven't I? Sorry, let's go the other way, guys. That one's a positive outcome. Sorry about that. This one's the negative, the concern. I've got myself set at $25. I'm purchasing at $26. That's 5.3% below, and therefore my margins are 5.3% below in terms of what I'm going to achieve. And I might just say, the idea behind this pricing status column in the top grid is to allow you to instantly see what's going on, the data in the bottom of the screen. So you can imagine if I had 50 items lines in here, I can instantly see the orange or the red in the pricing status, and I'm drawing your attention straight away to where you might want to consider having a look. This third line, also orange, has got 158.05 as the agreed trading rate, and I've been charged 163.63. That's above. That's a violation, if you will, of our trading agreement. This is what I expect to pay. I don't expect to pay that amount there. So that offers me a couple of scenarios to consider. If I want to update my agreed trading rates, I can do that. And this functionality is exactly the same as the normal manual entry screen for creditor invoicing. The difference being it's all on the dashboard straight up. You don't get a pop-up at the end. We get to interact with it as we go. And I would actually not get away with posting this line here at all if I didn't tick to override the agreed pricing. So by taking that status change, you can see this has gone red. I've now got a red, not an orange. I cannot proceed unless I say yes. I acknowledge and I accept that we've been overcharged based on our agreed trading rates, and I'll take responsibility, but that's what we're happy to pay on this occasion. And a tick up the top brings that back to orange. Everything's not perfect, but I'm right to proceed because I gave the authorization to do so. So without labouring this point too much further, what we're doing here is really working hard to protect your trading rates, your agreement with your suppliers, what the system thinks you should be charged for everything, and really, triple checking all that data to give you in this dashboard screen an instantaneous view of are things in order or are they not? And if they're not in order, what do I need to do to sort of deal with that? You do have the ability to open up the creditor invoicing screen with the right-click action. That will simply launch the creditor invoicing screen, which you're all probably familiar with. This one, except that I've got the ability to fill in the date, and you can see here the PDF data is actually October last year. to give our timelines, that's actually when we went beta with this new functionality, and we've been running this with a bunch of clients from then till now, just ironing out and just making sure our templates are set up correct and it's all working. We can fill the reference in. Why? Because we read it from the PDF document. All the stuff you'd normally see is going on in this screen as you'd expect to see it. Double click, there's my stock. It's all the same, you're used to all of that. If you are processing a credit claim, if there's an overcharge situation or a short supply situation, you actually still have to use this screen currently. We aren't processing credit claims through this PDF screen here with this version of the software. We may consider that in the future, but at the moment, the steps you need to do to get that accurate, it's just as it's probably 6 of one, half dozen of the other, to just do that through the invoicing screen because of the way the data works, and keep the dashboard really honed in on running the high-speed stuff that's right to go. And again, before we get to the actually doing something together, still in that detail mode for all those people that love details, if I double click on the pricing status here, you can see there's a bit more information going on. I've got my invoice rate. I've got my agreed rate, which in this case is below the invoice rate, which is why the system's going a bit bananas on the proceeding forwards. I've also got my standard cost set at the same, which is 1.2% below the invoice rate. So again, my margins are being squeezed over what I actually think I'm truly achieving. And same sort of thing on this next one down. We're down 3.5% based on what we see to be our agreed rate, standard cost versus our invoice rate. And all of that won't be bypassed without you giving us authorization to do so. We're taking your agreed rate set up against suppliers as a very hard line commitment, as a contract, if you will, of the charge rates. Two more things I want to quickly mention up the top, and we'll actually have some fun and press the post button because that's what we've turned up for. The first one I really want to draw out, in addition to everything I've already said, is the purchase order received status column. If you haven't received the purchase order into the warehouse, we will not let you process this invoice. Why? Because we're looking for the confirmation of the quantities as well as the pricing information to know that everything's in order. It's again beyond the scope of this release of this software at this stage, this dashboard, to do the warehouse receive action and the invoice action here. We've made it very easy to do that. You can simply right click and jump into the purchase order received screen. It'll load it all up, set you there ready to go. So that's certainly an option. And you can also see from this dashboard, this right click menu action I've got here, I can open up the purchase order. I can jump to the purchase order view screen. That'll put me on the one-on-one screen. So there's a whole lot of hot links that run from this dashboard out to the various other places in the system. I won't go through all of these in full detail. The other video does cover that. That's probably enough here. So what I want to do now, I want to clean up some of this information on the screen as you would typically do if you were driving it. And as I say, press the post because that's the fun thing at the end. The last one to mention is delivery charges. Now, I've actually deliberately created a scenario here to allow me to draw out one other point of discussion, and that is product substitution. So you've ordered some plasterboard, we'll pick on that, and instead of sending the sheet size you've asked for, they've sent you the next size up at the same price as what you asked for. So you haven't been charged more, but we've ended up with a different product coming in. I won't go again into all the details and the nuts and bolts, but product substitution is fully supported. We'll get the right price against the higher sized product. We will have the warehouse doing, what they should do. All of that will be in order. And what you'll see happening in this color grid here is that the data will represent what the system's detecting in terms of the nature of it. That's the first thing I want to draw out. The second thing is taking this example here and just sort of talking about, again, a little bit of detail, what's going on behind the scenes. The invoice side of things here hasn't got a stock code. It has got a description and it has got an amount, a rate, and the purchase order hasn't been matched up. So these other product lines, yeah, great. The invoice has matched up to the purchase order. We're happy, the quantity's in order. We've got, volume, pack size, all sorts of stuff going on there. But this last one hasn't. And the reason for that is these guys, Rondo, they send their delivery charge. It's kind of almost like a line item, but they left the product code off. So it's not quite a line item, but it's not quite a freight charge that you see tacked onto the bottom either. And I could show you some other ones where the suppliers do that. You guys will be well familiar with that, no doubt. So the thing I wanted to draw out, we do have the ability to manually match things off. As soon as I go into that mode, I can choose other things. I can put it on different expense accounts. There's a whole lot of sort of options that become available to me there. Again, I'm going to leave the details of that to the other video. What I do want to say is, if the thing that's causing the imbalance is a delivery charge, you'll find the little picture of a truck here turns up when you click on the line that's applicable to. If I press that, the system created a new expense line here to the freight and carriage. That's just a system setting, which we just map it to your one, whatever that might be. It's moved the third line of the invoice off to the second line up here now in terms of expense allocation. It's put it on the freight and cartage line, and you can see it's gone blue because it represents an expense to you. It doesn't represent a product that's going into your warehouse. It's just a straight up charge. And for those that were watching the top of the screen, that has now gone to green. It used to be red a moment ago. And the reason it's gone to green is it's 100% happy. Everything's balanced. We're fully matched up in terms of pricing, in terms of product, in terms of what's hit the warehouse, and now also in terms of the financials, because we've got our freight charge done correctly. So we've now got, that one is green. This one here, as I said, I've deliberately set some information. If we wanted to proceed forward with that, absolutely can. I'm going to say, look, I know I haven't hit my, and this wouldn't be the norm, I wouldn't have thought, I know I haven't hit with my agreed costs. I'm going to choose to have an override and go forwards anyway. On this occasion, I would have thought the norms would be either a credit claim or find out what's going on. Did we miss a price rise? Should we have gone through the inventory Excel load and handled our supplier price rise prior to hitting this point, in which case these things would be in order? We failed to do that, and now the invoicing is coming through at the higher rate. There's other, business processes beyond the scope of today's video and session. This one, we will not proceed forwards no matter what I do, unless I was to go and actually do the receive action. Not going to do that. You're familiar with the process there. And this first one, as I said before, similar sort of thing. The system's drawing the fact that I am getting less margin selling this item than I think I am. And do I want to go and sort that out? And I can sort that out. This would go green, but orange is an acceptable outcome as well. So what I'm going to do for the video, because I actually want some data left on the screen at the end of this, in case you guys have some questions and I want some data to drill into, I'm going to leave a handful of things just there. We'll just post a few of them, leave a few there to come back to, and press the post selected button. The system will give me an outcome of what just happened. All these ones were successfully posted. Obviously, the more green ticks I had, the more you'll get going on up here. And if we were now to go and have a look at the outcome of what we just did, I'll go into my creditor maintenance screen, go to my Rondo account, have a look. There's the invoice, very similar to what you guys will be used to now in terms of the expense allocation, the stock that I just purchased, what I paid for it, all that sort of stuff hasn't changed. The one thing that I want to draw out is we've attached the PDF that came in for that invoice to the actual transaction. I know some of you guys are already manually putting those PDF documents in place and storing them on the invoice, but not everyone is. And this allows us to get to somewhere closer towards that paperless office that people talk about. That being, I don't have to file the invoice. I don't even have to file it in my emailing system to get back to it. We've attached it to the invoice itself in the posting in Accrivia. And if there's ever an inquiry or a bit of a drill down that's required on that invoice, I don't have to go beyond this screen, find it, double click on it, there it is. So let me catch my breath for 2 seconds, have a little bit of a look at my running sheet to see what I failed to mention that was meant to be covered. I think we are looking fine. And we are going to allow some time for questions at the end of this. Actually, I might do that. We're going to throw to the microphones right now if that worked for us, then just to throw some questions in on this. I won't do that. I'll keep going with my process, and when we've got through everything I'm going to present, we'll come back to questions. And as you can see, I've left some data on the screen here, so anything you guys might want to bring up, I can drill down and show you how that works. Okay, the second part of today's webinar is focusing in I'm going to hit my straps a bit because I'm about 10 minutes behind time, and we're not going to make the grand final next year, that's for sure. I am going to talk cash book presentation. This one doesn't take as long because it's more sort of straight lines, straight arrows. So as I said earlier, the real benefits that we want to draw in here is that for every account that you received in at the moment, you're going to the debtor receiving screen, you're looking at your bank statement information from the bank, the electronic info, and you're entering the receipt and you're reconciling the invoices that you just got paid. We can do all of that fully electronically and fully automatically simply using the data that's available to us. So the first thing you would do is download the file from the bank and save it onto your local computer, your network, as a CSV file. Typically, there's other formats you can do if you want to, but that's the easiest one for us to map to. There is a mapping and setup that goes with this process. And one of the things I have learned, again, as I've got around the tracks and talked to different people, is that there are a number of clients we've got that aren't using the electronic bank rec process. They're manually entering the data. So I really want to draw out two parts of this. If you are manually doing bank rec without using the benefit of the file, do give us a hoy because we'd love to see you doing it. It's so much more efficient. You do less work, all that sort of stuff. The second part of what is beneficial is what we're going to talk about and really spend time on today, and that is why not take up the debtor receipts and automatically put those through and save manually entering those as well. So I've created a bit of a sample file, as you can see here. Actually got a real one and hacked it. Not a huge amount of data, but certainly enough data for me to demonstrate the functionality behind this screen and how this process works. On the left, we have the bank statement data, and on the right, we have the Accrivia data that's already in there, the unpresented cash book entries. And the name of the game here, ultimately, in terms of pressing the post and getting a final outcome, is everything on the left of the screen has to get matched off to everything on the right side of the screen. Now, if you've already entered the debtor receipt, for those that are doing it that way round, those things would already be in the side of here, and we could match them off. In fact, the system will do its best to do that as it loads the data in from the file in the first place. However, why enter it manually if we can use the electronic information to push it into the system and get that time benefit? And that's essentially the process that we want to look at right now. Again, for those not using this one, very quickly, there's again a full video up on the YouTube channel that covers all of this. This matched tab is going to show us the matched information as we work through the process together right now. The data receiving is where we're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about, because that's the point of our promotion today with this webinar. And then the last thing we're going to do is use the Add tab to push a general ledger journal or a cash book posting, probably better language, into the system for what isn't already there, but doesn't relate to our debtors and doesn't relate to our creditors systems. And that, for those that are scanning ahead, is going to be my bank fees. So let's come back to here. The first thing to note is this 1689, this payment to a supplier is in fact there. I can double click on the amount in the amount column here, and the system will search for that same amount on the right side of the screen. There is the potential for a double hit, grant you that, but that would normally land us on the right one. And then I can press the red arrow up here to assign that to that transaction, to match those two off. Now, worth noting, I have actually cooked the data a little bit today because I wanted information to show you guys. And these sort of things often auto match as it loads. So quite often you wouldn't actually see that one there. I've pulled my business rules back a little bit to allow me to do the process manually. So I've just matched that one to this one. And if we went to the match tab, there's our first one sitting there. It's all done. The Accrivia entry has been matched to the bank statement entry. Coming back now and having a quick scan down the screen, I can see I've got a bunch of deposits from some debtors. I've got a monthly plan fee, as I said, a bank fee charge. We're going to do that one last. So now let's jump into the point of today's draw out in terms of our webinar, the thing we really want to draw your focus to, and talk about the benefits of using the bank file to do your debtor receiving process. If I come in here and I press the auto match, the system runs through, it looks at the statement description that's come from the bank, and it tries to find the debtor's account that goes with that entry. If it identifies that correctly and happily, it puts the debtor code in here, the debtor name in there, and then it starts to look at, okay, if they've paid us a certain amount, what does that actually go to in terms of their account and the invoices that are owed, the transactions they owe us for. You can see on this first line, and again, I've set the data to draw out the functionality a little. They've put the invoice reference on the actual entry. We've identified that transaction in Accrivia as the actual invoice number. So this is a cash account. This could have 37 different transactions on it. And we've been able to identify the actual one that it relates to, not just the account, but the invoice itself, because they gave us that information in the actual reference. And you can see in our action, we're going to reconcile to the transaction itself. I'm going to come back to that one in just a sec. And you can see in our period information here, the amount that we've got is tying to an exact transaction. This next one, JD Abbey here, they have paid $16,360.08, which is the balance of period 2, 3, and 4. There's actually a 0 in 4, so that's not fed in, it's just the algorithm's run. And it's identified, look at that, they've paid everything in 60 days and everything in 30 days. They're a month behind with their account. Everything there is fantastically lined up, perfect, fantastic, let's proceed forwards. So we've set the action to take place as create the payment and reconcile all the transactions in the period that relates to that payment. Again, all good. Let's talk about the third one, George and son here. George is being a bit of a pain. Actually, it might be his son, more likely. We won't make any jokes about the kids just yet. They've paid $52.12 and they owe us $52.12 and 55 cents. So they've done that thing, you know, used to do back in the days of checks. They can't be bothered writing out the cents, so they just wrap it up there at that point. The Accrivia system said, look, I don't want to take any action. I'd like to have your involvement on this one. What would you like to do about that? I could choose to create the payment and reconcile to the oldest transactions, which will be in the period, and that will leave the last transaction with 55 cents owing. That'll go out on their next statement. We'll be making it clear to them we weren't that amused by their lack of 55 cents payment. Please don't do that again. That was painful. We could do that, no question. The other option we've got, if we wanted to, is to drop back into the semi-manual mode, as we could do in the previous session, screen. We could right-click. In this occasion, we could manually reconcile. I could double-click up here, or I can press the button down here. That'll take me into the debtor receiving screen, something you're all familiar with, no doubt. And what it's done is it's set all the information in here that it should. It's put the amount in that it knows, because that's come from the bank. But I could elect to put in that extra 55 cents as discount if I wanted to, giving me a total amount to work with. And then the process is business as usual. Again, what you'd all be used to. There's only one transaction here. You might have had 37 of them. It'll be the last one that we're sort of taking it up. So as you can see, we can still do the manual receipting, but we've still got the benefit of the system choosing the debtor's account, the system setting the date, the system setting all of that other information, including the amounts, taking me into the next part, allowing me to post that. That worked out nicely. That line disappears off the screen. It's now done. If I went back and had a look on the match tab, I've got my deposit from George. And while the bank is only aware of the $52.12, the actual posting on George's account has got that extra 55 cents of discount, which has been done. The last one, again, deliberately set to show the functionality of the screen, is this one hasn't been identified at all. Now, I had to cook the data again. I put the word payment instead of deposit. There's business algorithm rules that we've set up for each of the major banks and the minor ones that know how to interpret the data that your bank puts across and what to ignore because it's not important and what to pick up because it's very important. So this one here, Mr. Rothman's hardware store, hasn't been picked up at all. I wanted to show you the process of telling the system for the first time you encounter a customer how you lock it in. So I can come in here, I can choose the right account, I press OK, and the system says, hey, this is the first time we've matched up a rule for this customer. Would you like to set that in place so the next time they pay us, we know what's going on? Well, thank you very much. Yes, I would. I'll get rid of the word payment because that doesn't mean a lot to me, but what's going to come through on their account in future, no doubt. And again, I've just cooked the data. I could cut that back to just being Rothman's. I could leave the hardware, the HW, whatever is appropriate for what will be coming through in the future. And my general recommendation is give it as much as you can without going overboard, because we want to isolate it down, but we don't want too much information. Otherwise, it could mess it up and it won't find it next time. That's been locked in. You can see the amount there does in fact match what was on their statement from the previous 30 days. So everything is in order. And in future, when that account is paid, we've stored the information you just saw a second ago, and I've elected to put that into the payment details field on the debtor. So there's no real rocket science there. We're just using an existing debtor account field to store the information that ties back to the bank statement and to work with. I might mention where the system gets double hits, I think it goes into a I'm not going to lock it in if I can't be sure of it kind of mode. But again, we're looking to identify the account with the unique enough information that if you did have, a whole lot of Smiths out there, for argument's sake, we've got enough information to identify who's who. Once that's done and we've got our actions set correctly, we press the post button. Again, for those that don't like the detail, the big picture players out there, you would have come in here, you would have pressed auto match, it would have flooded the screen with all the information that could match up. Press post and then clean up your differences. Is the fastest way to do it if you weren't in a demonstration mode like I am. You can see that's gone through. Actually, I've got a manual one here still set. My apologies for that. I didn't talk about Terry King. Old mate Terry has got a bit behind with his account and he owes us a pile of money going back into 90, 120 days. He's given us $25,000 as a lump sum payment. There's no disputing he is happy with the account in terms of transactions, not disputing it. But he's just made a lump sum payment. On that scenario, I wouldn't do a manual one. I would simply go, let's create and reconcile to the oldest, because we know he's happy with things. We're just going to start paying off these invoices from the oldest one coming forwards. And again, all done. So if we go back to our match tab and have a look, these transactions are now all in the system, but they've been entered as a result of using this screen. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, we've now got only one thing left to match off, and that's a bank fee. That won't be in the system because I don't go ahead and actually enter those. I can simply use the Add tab, set the branch or the division or whatever it might be that relates to. If I know the GL account, I can type it straight in. If I don't know, I can search for it, all the usual sort of things you're used to in that space. As soon as I give everything on this screen information to make it valid, the Update button comes alive. That's been entered into the system as a general ledger journal. I opened that screen earlier, close that. And what we've now got back in our cash book presentation screen is the statement balance is locked in. You don't get the chance to key that in because there's no need for you to do so. I've picked that up from the bank statement and entered it for you. Our closing balance is tying in. There is no difference. Everything's in order. The only thing that's going to be left is a deposit that was made on the last day of the month of July, which we'll pick up obviously on the August process. Everything there's done. I press the apply and I wrap it up. So again, to repeat myself, the real benefits of that is all the debtor receiving for all of your customers that came into your bank statement through direct deposits, direct debits to you. You don't have to manually enter them via this screen. You can pick them all up as part of the cash book presentation or the account reconciliation sort of process. I am well behind time. I apologise. That was always going to happen, wasn't it? I will, in 30 seconds, mention the one thing I was going to do that was extras. Automated tasks in Accrivia allows the system to email any given user at any given time of the day, the week, or the month, any report that's there. So I could go and pick up profit report, sales report, trial balance, you name it, we can do it. In actual fact, there's other things we can do as well besides that, FTPs, all sorts of stuff. I could pick a report up and I can now set up all the data that relates like you normally would when you ran a report, but this is geared for automation. So do I want that week? Do I want that month? Do I want that day? What's the information I'm looking for? How do I want to filter that down for preference? And then that report, you can set as many of these up as you like, will get run at a certain time, emailed to as many people as we like as a PDF document. And your inbox then will have, the next morning or whenever, come in on Monday, there from the week before, the information that matters to you. So again, this has been around a while. We have quite a few clients using this, but I just wanted to draw out because there's a number that didn't know it exists and have raised that with us. We just wanted to draw out that if you've got certain reports you run on a regular basis for certain information for yourselves, feel free to contact us. We can set them as automated, and then bang, the system will run it for you and email it through. Okay, I'm going to throw to questions, and I apologise I'm out of time. If you need to go, by all means do so. I'm going to throw to questions just with regards to the primary information we've done and shown today. All my practice ones came in 10 minutes earlier than today has. And yeah, have we got any questions that you want me to drill into the data on either of the things that I've covered today? Actually, one thing I was meant to mention earlier that I will mention now, and that is the debtor receiving via the bank statement file there's no charge for that. It's just part of the standard system. Everyone who's got our debtors and our cash book modules can use that immediately. In terms of bank feeds, a bit of a word for another product out there. We have written some software that allows to hook into the banks, but we are still dealing with service providers. So at the moment, you do need to download that file to actually process that. There may be an automation in the future where we just reach into your bank, grab it and pull it down. We're just working out some details there. This first one I showed, the Creditor PDF invoice processing, it is a software as a service, and the charge there is volume based. So we've been doing some numbers, just looking at the people who are already using this and what they were time-wise or what they were spending doing invoicing manually. And so it will be a charge, a monthly sort of yearly kind of subscription type basis based on volume. And the more transactions you do, then the charge might be a bit higher. But the one thing we're doing is making sure that it is well below the benefit and the time saved and the cost saved of doing it manually. As you can see from earlier, I can do literally tens, hundreds of transactions very, very quickly if everything's in order.